Hi, Tanya. I'm so excited to talk to you today. You have such an extraordinary offer and background. And to me, this is an offer that the world needs. And I'm truly blessed to be in your company today and always. So thank you so much for spending the time with me to talk this through.
Oh, well, thank you for being here. It's always lovely to share it, share the story.
So, Tanya, let's start with your background. You've got an extraordinary background as a coach in the corporate world. Would you mind taking us on a little bit of a narrative of the pathway that led you to who you are today and what you offer today?
Sure. Well, look, my personal journey, actually, the journey of discovery of self started when I was a teenager. And I had this love of personal development. I had a few troubles as a teenager. So it was back then, actually, as a 15-year-old, that I started journaling, would you believe? And even took myself off to get a bit of help when I was 16. So it's been a big journey for me on going within and seeing the importance of having to work out why I do what I do. And because it was sort of expected of me, I then became an accountant because I'm a numbers girl, believe it or not. So I then went and studied and became an accountant, but it wasn't my calling. And so instead of being an accountant, I just started mentoring people, quietly mentoring people, and had my own journey really there on learning how to speak to people, learning how to mentor people, learning how to help them go from where they are now to where they want to be. So it was actually in my 20s and then in my 30s that I started digging really deep into my own work because there were so many things I had to deal with. And one of them actually was the grief of infertility, not being able to have my own children in my 30s. And that in itself was a big journey of grief. And it was then that I made the decision actually to go and study to be a therapist and a life coach. And the reason I wanted to do that really was because I wanted to heal myself. I knew that I was grieving and I knew that I needed something else in my life if I wasn't going to have babies. So I went and studied to be a therapist. And it was also the time when, coincidentally, all these people around me were getting cancer. It was quite scary. It was my cousin. It was the first time I'd ever encountered it and walked alongside someone, a young man in his 40s, who had only just started living life, really, and accomplishing things. And he was diagnosed with terminal cancer. And it was the first time I ever saw someone go to that end place. And then all of a sudden, people around me were just getting cancer left, right, and centre. It was quite freaky. And one of them was my dad. Thankfully, he survived. But then there were all these other family members. And it was my husband, Phil, in fact. He had family members also. One of them was his uncle and daughter at the same time. So a father and a daughter died within a week of each other of cancer. So we had all of these situations around us. And Phil and I became this like little center point of support and gathering of people to support people and families as they were trying to deal with cancer or any terminal illness, in fact. And so Phil and I became this like strong couple and we would help everyone. And then my mother was diagnosed, would you believe? I couldn't believe it. And by that stage, it was, oh, okay. Oh, cancer, here we go again. What do I do? And I sort of knew what to do. And thankfully, my mum is still here. She's a survivor as well. So that was it. It just naturally happened that way, that I went from being someone who really wanted to dig deep and help myself on my journey to already helping others. Now, what then happened was the unexplained, it was just never foreseen, was Phil, my very strong husband, healthy husband. He was then diagnosed and I'd just turned 40. And interestingly, at that point, I'd made the decision that, okay, if I'm not going to have babies, I'm going to do something else with my life. I'm going to do something greater. I'm going to do something for mankind. And I kid you not, I think it was 3 months after my 40th birthday, Phil said to me, Tan, I've got to go to a doctor tomorrow because I've got a lump under my arm. And that was all he said to me. And something inside me changed. And I knew that my life was never going to be the same. Anyway, it was 5 months after he told me that he actually passed away. And, it was like, as soon as he was diagnosed, I sort of knew, okay, I now understand why I wasn't meant to have children. I have to do this for this man. And then when I realized that he wasn't going to make it, I realized that there was something greater in the world for me to do. I mean, I've been working on myself. I've been helping people all this time. And it's as if it was all an apprenticeship for this big finale one when Phil was diagnosed, and helping Phil go to a place of peace and calm as he left this world. So that's things in a nutshell on why I am where I am today, and what the background is of how I got to be here and how I got to discover what my real purpose in life is. I could go on, but I thought I'd better stop and give you a bit of it.
Yeah, and look, at your story always makes me tear up. You are so strong and so determined, and you see such positivity in every situation, which in fact is what makes you so good at what you do. But let's talk a little bit, if you don't mind, about what it is that you do. So I know the why, I know why this is so incredibly important to you. But when someone has a diagnosis, which you've seen happen many, many, many times for family members, clients, people around you, there's a diagnosis and there's a moment where life changes. Having witnessed that so many times, what's your take on that, and what do you do that can really help people navigate that moment and the many moments that follow that no one could possibly plan for?
Well, that moment for me was nearly 16 years ago, and it's been another journey for me since then, from that time of Phil's passing to now, for me to be able to strengthen myself and now be able to accept that grief is part of life. Grief is going to affect every single one of us. And to be able to not run from grief, to not be full of fear when that moment comes, when either you or a family member has been diagnosed, and then for a part of you to already pass away. It's like, I will be there. I will show you how you can still keep living, even if you've been given a diagnosis, even if it is terminal, even if for you can't see anything beyond a little bit there in front of you. It's about coming in and walking beside you as you still live with cancer, with the diagnosis, or whatever else it is.
It's hard to articulate what it is that you do, other than to say, in my few words, that you are there to help navigate moments that no one on this planet could possibly be prepared for. And the diagnosis is not the end. So can you take us through some of your core values, what it is that you help a family and help the person who's been diagnosed to navigate in that window of time? What's your place in that moment?
Well, it's to be able to manage the feelings. It's to be able to manage the fear. It is to be able to sit with the feelings as well and not run from them. It's to be able to pass through the shock, pass through all of the feelings that you want to run away from, the anger and all of those feelings that really disrupt you, and to be able to learn how to sit and be with those feelings. That's a big part of it, because so many people they run and they stop living, they stop feeling, they stop communicating with family members, they stop experiencing life, and there's no need to do that. It may also be that you need a safe place, a safe haven, to be able to share your innermost pain, to share the sorrow that you feel, to share your own grief, to share what it is that you're scared of. Many people want to share things that they've never shared with anyone else before, and they need a confidant. They need someone who's going to hold their innermost pains and secrets, or whatever it is, to hold it tightly and knowing, well, at least I've let it go. At least I've been able to open up and share what's been buried inside me for so many years. And I don't want to live with this for one more day. I don't know how much time I've got left, but I don't want to live with this for one more day. I want to be free of this, and I want to be able to share it and not even understand it, just let it go, to get to that place of surrender and letting go. So there are so many, that's one area anyway, that I have a strong belief that if we don't go within, then we go without. And to be able to go within and clear out all of those things that we've held on to for so many years or most of our life, why not free yourself of that has kept you stuck for so many years? So that's one area.
Well, I think that brings a good point up, and that is, so in most situations when there's a diagnosis, there's very few people around to support you and to support the family. The natural place is the medical system. So you've got your doctor and you've got specialists, you've got nurses, hospices, those sorts of things. You probably have financial planners who, might get involved, and towards the end, you'll, hire the services of, end of life planning. So funeral, for example. But there's no one that is there helping you navigate all of that. And usually that would be the people, the person and the surrounding people would be leaning on one another and or family members or friends. What makes you different to the usual places that people lean on, and why do you feel it's important? How can you go deeper than the usual places that people land?
Well, firstly, I've walked your journey. I've walked that path, that road that we don't want to walk as early as I did in life at 40. And I was like a bit of a silent observer of me. And having been through studying as a therapist and specializing in grief, hello, I was then able to, in some way, observe as I was walking through that place. And in hindsight, having written about it and serving and helping so many other people on that journey now, I know the journey so well. And, when someone is diagnosed and the time is limited, you want to be able to be with your family, whether it, a husband be with a wife or parent be with the children. You want to be the spouse. You want to be the parent. You don't want them to be your therapist or confidant. You want to still embrace that relationship that you've got. And meanwhile, anything else that needs to be discussed that you don't want to have to dump on close family members, that's where I am available to be able to be that intermediary, to be that person who holds the grief from whichever party it is, and helping them deal with what they're going through, whether it be anger, rage, or sadness, or whatever it is, so that they can clear all of that out and come together and have the remaining time that they've got left as beautiful time. So I see the difference there. And with my late husband Phil, I was there just doing everything, and by the end I was worn out. There was nothing left of me, in a way, because I was doing everything to help him leave this earth peacefully, without fear. And in spite of my own physical and emotional depletion, my goal, my focus was him, and which was great, which was wonderful, but it also took time away from us just being husband and wife. I was his carer. I did everything, and that's what he wanted. But it would have been lovely for me to have been dealing with so much of my emotional stuff that I was carrying, and for him to, say, be talking to someone else or journaling and getting things out with someone else, so that we could have been husband and wife. So there's quite a difference there. And You know, I know what it's like once they're gone. It takes a long time to recover physically and emotionally if you have been caring and emotionally carrying them. It's very hard. You don't realize for 2 or 3 months how battered you are physically and emotionally. So to be able to come in and carry that, carry the family, carry the one who's at the end stage or spouse, and be that strength there. It's quite unique and quite a beautiful, it's quite a beautiful thing to do as well, you know. Mm,
Yeah, absolutely. It's so important. And so the work that you do doesn't mitigate the need for health care and all of those other things. It's an overarching planning and caring role that's
mm,
part mentor, part therapist, part, you know, part friend, part companion, part confidant who listens and can help navigate towards the end in
mm,
a way that elevates the beauty
mm.
of the situation in as many ways as possible.
You know, and the other thing is that it's so common that people who are at the end stage of their life don't want to share a lot of things. They either take it with them, they don't want to share it with family members, and it's still sitting with them. And, you know, for me to be able to come in and be that confidant, or even be the person that writes everything out that they want to say and maybe share it after they've gone, at least they've been able to release it. At least they've been able to know, I don't have the strength to tell them now, but I know they're going to know this once I've gone, you know, or to be able to plan some of the end of life celebration things with them that they don't want to share with others. So, I mean, it is quite extensive. You could kind of keep going, but mm,
Absolutely. And I think that must be it must be very common. My best friend was diagnosed with cancer. She's okay, thankfully. But one of the things that she's shared with me in recent years, many, many years after the diagnosis, was that her primary concern during those moments when she was very ill was protecting everyone else around her.
mm,
That must be a really common thing that you run into. And so you can help be that person in the center
mm,
to pull the story out, to pull those secret things that they're not able to share with their loved ones because they're protecting them. Have you been in a situation, or you've probably seen many situations like this? Can you describe what that's like for the person who's trying to protect everyone else?
yes, most definitely. Well, the thing that happens there often is the person who is trying to protect others. In fact, if you turn it around, maybe they just so want to hear that from you. You know, you don't realize that people around you who you're trying to protect actually want you to be closer. They want you to share more. They want you to say, hey, this is how I want my end of life celebration to be, or this is what I want for you when I'm gone. But it's so hard for the person at the end stage of their life to be able to voice that and say that. And so they keep it to themselves. So everyone's missing out in a way. So there's so much more benefit for things to come out into the open, but I totally understand when they don't. And you know, it goes even so far as to some people not even knowing that someone is dying, that someone is at the end stage of their life. I've seen this happen more times than one, where the person has passed on and then close family members didn't even know they were ill until after they were gone. That's tough for the people who didn't even know. They've always got this question in their mind, but why wasn't I special enough to be told, or why wasn't I told? But imagine, even if what you were there to do was to script the letter that they wanted to write, what is it that you want to say to them once you're gone? help them understand why you're not letting them know now. To get all of that out on paper, it will be so healing, not only for the person who's passing away, but also for those who are left behind, because that would really help with their grieving process as well.
Absolutely. And Tanya, it's a great segue to something else that you've added to your offers, because so many people at the end stage they have a story that they want to tell. Can you tell us a little bit about what you do there with the story? Yeah.
Sure. Well, it's like actually documenting their life. And it may not be the whole lot. It may just be bullet points that they give me. And then during conversation, we can expand on it more and more. But so often people go through life and they forget about how wonderful they actually really were. We go through life not feeling good about ourselves all the time. And what a shame it would be to pass on and never really understand how much you mattered. And so I always encourage people, no matter who I work with, let's take a look at your life and let's document all of the times where you showed up with courage, with dignity, with strength, because we want to put it down on paper as evidence that actually you've been winning your whole life, but you just forgot. You've always mattered. You've always been somebody. Yet, we're all in that space, aren't we, at some point in our life where we don't feel that we're good enough. What a shame it would be to leave this earth still holding on to that belief. So that's one of the reasons I do it, is to let people see how much they are loved, how lovable they were, and how much they truly mattered. But then again, also document your life. Put it out there, decade by decade. What was great? What did you accomplish? What was special? Who was special in your life? Is there someone you need to say something to? Is there someone who you want to make amends to? And, it may just even be a small letter. What was significant? It's like doing this searching and moral inventory of your life. So it's not only a wonderful healing thing to do at the end stage of your life, but it's also a beautiful gift to be able to leave for those who are left behind. And even though it might just be bullet points and handwritten notes or anything, you can have it published later or put it into a beautiful book later, and then have that presented to family. And what a beautiful gift that would be for those left behind. So yes, it's endless what you can do.
Absolutely. So special and important. And so, Tanya, the other thing that you do that is equally as important as the planning for the end stages is the post grief. So we're in grief now, and this is some of the most important work that you do. Can you take me through the process afterwards and what you do to help the family, the widow, the widower?
It's about navigating those first few months after the funeral, once they've passed on, and navigating through the grief, because it does hit you. At first, after the end of life celebration, the funeral, everyone's around you. It's quite busy. And in a way, you're on a bit of a false high. There's so many people around you and there's things to do and that. But slowly, everyone else has to go back to their own lives, even your children. And for the widow or the widower, you're left, you're alone. And that's often when it hits you. It's like opening the door and going outside in a frost, and you feel that cold on your ear. That's what it can be like. The reality hits you. Oh, actually, that's right. They did pass away and they're never coming back. So those first few months can be very, very difficult during that time. But then as the months goes, the grief changes. The tsunami of grief comes in different waves. There's practical things to do. There's decisions to make. But there's also, for the spouse who's left behind, there's this journey of rediscovery. Okay, who am I? I'm no longer a husband or a wife. Who does that make me in the world? Am I a miss or a missus? Am I a widow? Do I want to call myself that? It's this big identity. It's a bit of a crisis in a way, but the reality hits you that, oh my goodness, I'm not part of a couple anymore. And even cooking for one, shopping for one, there are so many things that remind you that you're no longer part of a couple. So it's going through that whole thing of identity. Who am I now in the world? Actually, what do I want now? What do I want for the rest of my life? So there is about getting clarity on what you do want and allowing yourself to move forward, allowing yourself to laugh again, to be seen to be laughing again, allowing yourself to start going out and enjoying life. You know, it's a big journey on breaking free from this perceived grief of what you carry and think that you should be doing. You know, there's this belief that, oh, but I can't be seen out there to be moving on too early, or whatever moving on means for you. So everyone's journey is different. I've been through it. I've had some hard lessons, hard knocks. It's been 15 years for me now. I can write about it. I can see it. I can see other people, how they've navigated through it, and I can help straight away go, I know what's going on for you, you know. It's an interesting journey, not an easy one.
Absolutely. And this is where all of your experience again culminates in something that is extremely unique, because not only have you navigated this yourself and you've been a grief therapist, but also you have a lot of extensive life coaching experience as well, and motivational and inspirational coaching experience. So this idea of the connection to purpose and the
Mm.
connection to destiny, and finding your way through that, and actually being okay with the idea that you've got some dreams that you still want to achieve. Can you walk me a little bit through that? Because I imagine that in and of itself is a big process for someone who's grieving to understand. And it's something that you are uniquely qualified in this world to help people navigate.
Well, the thing is to actually allow yourself, and it's about making a decision that yes, you want to live the rest of your life, that just because your partner has passed away doesn't mean that you have to be seen to be grieving for the rest of your life. It doesn't mean that your life ends. And one thing that helped me there was to, you know, reverse the roles. Well, what would Phil have wanted for me? Would he have wanted me to have stopped living? Gosh, no. You know, so I had to make that decision that I was going to live my life. I didn't know what it was going to look like, but the important thing that was that I was going to allow myself. Now, it doesn't mean that you need to wait for grieving to stop, because it will always resurface one way or another or get triggered. It's about allowing the grief, but also allowing life and living to happen at the same time. And life and living means joy, it means happiness, it means professional success, it may even mean loving again one day. And yes, grief will pop up every now and then, but it's learning how to allow both to be there at the same time. You don't know what this is going to look like, but it's about making that decision to allow yourself to live again, to thrive again, to even rise up to better than you were before. Who knows where the journey of life is going to take you? Maybe because of your experience, your loss, that you're now able to help mankind. Maybe that's where you can find meaning in your adversity, in your tragedy. Why not make a decision? Well, maybe I can help others. Maybe I can do this. Maybe I can write my own book of how I've come through this. But first you have to make the decision to allow yourself to live again. Without making that decision, then you're going to flounder, and you're always going to just worry about what other people think. That's a big one. Worrying about what other people think. This is your one and only life. And many of us have seen how short life can be, how quickly things can change with the diagnosis. Do not let that influence your decisions for your life from now on. And it does mean revisiting little feelings like guilt and survivor's guilt and all that sort of thing. That's where I will help you pass through all of those things and roadblocks that will stop you from living again.
And I imagine it's also, there's a very big part of this that's the not practical side of it, with you putting your arm around someone and showing them an expanded vision of who they can be outside of this experience that they've had. Is that, do you find that that's a really big part of what you're able to assist people with?
Oh, without question, because every adversity in life makes us stronger, right? And it's about going, well, maybe there is a bit more to life. Maybe there is something else out there for me. And it's okay. It's absolutely okay. And, you know, sometimes we find something else to strive for in life. We see a bigger picture. And one of the things that helped me accept Phil's passing and the grief of not having kids, the grief of him passing away, and all of those things was, maybe my journey will in some way be for the greater good of mankind. How can I put that into practice? And so it was about having that bigger vision. It was also about getting help and being able to do that, getting help and me being able to see what I was capable of doing. Sometimes someone else sees something in you that you don't see it yourself. And not only do you need someone to ignite that in you, but you need someone to help carry that flame when it's been ignited and to help you, mentor you on that journey, whatever it looks like. And let your driver be your adversity, because you've seen how short life is. And you go, you know what? I'm not going to waste one more day, because I see and saw how hard my loved one fought for every day of their life. So not only for me, but for them, but for mankind, I'm going to make this life count.
And you are the epitome of that. You are the living, breathing personification of big dreams come to life following grief. And from my perspective, as someone who has known you even for a short space of time, here is this extraordinary human being who's living in New Zealand, who is serving a global market, who has become a best-selling author, who has touched the lives of thousands and thousands of people all over the world, who routinely has media interviews and inspires greatness in people, who has traveled the world, who works privately with clients to help them navigate their grief and navigate a diagnosis. You are the living, breathing example of what greatness is following grief. Can you talk to me a little bit about what that feels like for you?
It was something I knew I had to do. Put it this way, I knew within 24 to 48 hours after Phil's passing, I had this moment in my kitchen. I just knew there was something greater. I didn't know what it looked like, but I knew that I didn't go through all this for nothing. And that has been my driver. That was my driver when I wrote the books. That has been my driver for every single thing that I've done since then. And it's still going to be my driver, because I've got this belief of being able to help mankind and contribute to mankind. And I've got that purpose driving me. And even if a gazillion dollars fell out of the sky, I'd still be doing it. You know, it's about serving people, helping other people, helping people who are suffering, because it's so easy to stay in this place of suffering. And we don't have to, we've got a choice. No matter what news we've been given, we can choose to either suffer, or we can choose to go to a place of acceptance and do whatever we can to still be fulfilled, to still feel peaceful, to still be united with family and relationships. It's the driver for me. Service to mankind.
Amazing. Sorry, Tanya, please go on. Please go on.
And also fighting your own fear when it comes up. Every time you step up that little bit more, every time you rise up that little bit more, it's scary, because you are going into unknown territory. It's scary when you start leaping to your own personal place of greatness, magnificence, whatever you want to call it, self-actualization. But why not? What's the alternative? We stay here, and then one day we have regrets. We're 80-year-old women or men, and we go, oh gosh, when I was 50, I wish I did that. I so do not want to be that person. And that is the driver. And that's why I keep encouraging people, this is our one precious life. You don't need a tragedy to be reminded that it is your one precious life, and there's a reason that you're here for every single one of us.
My goodness gracious, absolutely. You're such an inspiration. So
Mm.
Tanya, you work privately with a handful of clients. Yeah, and whilst normally you would be able to travel and do all sorts of things, obviously we're all a little bit stuck in our place right now. So you work privately with some clients, this is the way that you work with people. And do you find that it's compromised by working virtually with people, or do you still feel that warmth and love and attention that you can give people working with them remotely all over the world?
Well, actually, this is uniquely better in some way because they've got access to me straight away. It may just be, because grief comes in waves when you don't expect it, right? And people are able to reach me, and we can get in touch within a matter of minutes at times. And that's what makes it so great in a way. Admittedly, I might be in my pajamas or something at some time, depending who I'm working with, but that's okay. It's about being real and being there with someone in that moment, which for them may feel like horror at times, but we can transform it to be a place of peace and beauty and calm very quickly. Whereas, it's very different if you've got to get dressed up and go and visit someone or see them in person. You don't have that spontaneity, do you? But this is what I quite like, is just being able to just be with someone and the emotion straight away.
Absolutely. As long as you've got a device and some data, you're okay to go. And so the people that you work with can be in many different situations. It can be at the point of diagnosis, it can be towards the end stage, or it could be after in the grieving stages. So a plethora of different situations, everyone's different.
Mm.
Can you talk a little bit about the first way that people should get in touch with you, and what it is that you would do with them to begin with, what that first set of communication really looks like on the way to understanding whether you are a good match to help them out?
Sure. Well, once they reach out to me, whether it be via email or any other way that they can find me online, then I will make a booking and we'll actually speak in person. And I'd like to spend a bit of time in an initial conversation just to hear what's going on. What is it that they really want? How can I best serve them? And it's always good to do that one-on-one in person. So usually a Zoom call like this.
And then following on from that, then you can create a customized program for them that suits their situation. Is that generally the way that you work?
Yes, yes, because I work with a number of different people depending on what stage they're in, and also because grief is so unique, there's no one plan for everyone. So I very much work a bespoke way with each person, depending on their needs, depending on what it is they want, depending on the whole dynamic of the family as well, if I'm working with a family. So it's about hearing the needs of each individual member of the family as well. So we're in touch quite a lot during the process when we work together. It's a very beautiful relationship. So people are able to reach out to me, and things can change week by week.
Absolutely. And so do you have any final words of wisdom to anyone who might have watched this today and heard some of the things that you have to say, and they're interested in speaking with you a little bit more, but maybe they're feeling a little bit, I don't know, just there's something holding them back? Do you have any words of wisdom that you'd like to share with them?
I'm happy to help you work out what it is that's holding you back. It's about taking that little thorn out, because you never quite know what is beneath. And even though people are frightened of what is beneath, it's so much nicer to meet with it, to discover it, because the more we dig, the more courage we have to go within, the more your true, authentic self will come out. And I just encourage everyone to not go through their lifetime without the ability to just be themselves, be their true, authentic self, say what they need to say, and be who they need to be.
It's beautiful. And as I say, as someone who's known you just for a very short space of time over the last few months, I cannot imagine someone who I would trust more in this, in those very hard moments, to come into my life, you know, to really help navigate that process. You are so warm and so intelligent and so friendly and so wise and so knowing that I would work with you like this on any day, Tanya. It's been such a true pleasure to speak with you today. Thank you so much for all of your time and energy.
You are so welcome. It's been my honor, and thank you.